Every week, Tyler gave the rules that he and I decided.
Gentlemen, welcome to Fight Club. The first rule of Fight Club is, you do not talk about Fight Club. The second rule of Fight Club is, you do not talk about Fight Club. Third rule of Fight Club, someone yells stop, goes limp, taps out. The fight is over. Fourth rule, only 2 guys to a fight. Fifth rule, 1 fight at a time, fellas. Sixth rule, no shirts, no shoes. 7th rule, fights will go on as long as they have to. And the 8th and final rule, if this is your first night at Fight Club, you have to fight.
Welcome to the 75th Annual Fight Club Conference with Sigmund Freud.
So, tell me about your dream.
Oh, I had this dream last night.
And Stanford University's Philip Zimbardo.
So in my study of the Stanford Prison experiment, the Lucifer effect. And here we have Seattle Grace's own, world-renowned neurosurgeon, Dr. Derek Shepard.
Start the clock. 10 blade. And our pioneering humanistic psychologist, Abraham Maslow.
You are neatly good. I'd like to give you a brief synopsis of the movie Fight Club. So first we have our narrator, who will henceforth be known as Jack, because he really has no name. So the movie starts out, and Jack is working as a car crash investigator, and he's a very organized, methodical person who really is trying to plan out the rest of his life, where he meets the antagonist, if you will, Tyler Durden, and he is a soap seller and the most interesting person Jack ever met. From then on, Jack returns home and finds that his apartment has been blown up, where he goes to he decides to go live with Tyler, and they become best friends and start a fight club, which is an underground ring of fighting among many men with problems. And then we see Tyler and Jack spiral out of control, where they decide to create mayhem around the city where they live. And this later is where Jack snaps and decides this is not what he wants and tries to kill himself, which kills Tyler.
I want you to hit me as hard as you can.
Why? How much can you know about yourself? You've never been in a fight.
Wait, let me start earlier. Like many of you, I was stuck.
No, you can't die from insomnia.
I'd flip through catalogs and wonder, what kind of dining set defines me as a person? This is your life, and it's ending 1 minute at a time. I prayed for a different life.
Soap. I make and I sell soap.
And this is how I met Tyler Durden.
Come on, hit me before I lose my nerve. Oh. Ow! You hit me in the ear!
It was on the tip of everyone's tongue.
Can I be next?
We just gave it a name.
Gentlemen, welcome to Fight Club. The first rule of Fight Club is, you do not talk about Fight Club.
After Fight Club, we all started seeing things differently.
You're gonna have to keep me up all night.
And she ruined everything.
You're not into her, are you?
No, God, not at all.
We've all been raised on television to believe that one day we'd all be movie gods and rock stars, but we won't.
He had a plan. To what purpose? In Tyler we trusted.
We gotta take Fight Club up a notch. Each one of you has a homework assignment. You're gonna start a fight with a total stranger.
That's not necessary.
You're gonna lose.
That hurt.
You were looking for a way to change your life. You got it.
I'm stopping this.
It's already done, so shut up.
What kind of sick game are you playing?
Oh my God.
Where is my mind? Where is my... This is too much!
In the end, you will thank me. Whoa! Whoa!
So when we first meet Jack, we see that he's very detached from his life, and he has a lot of psychological issues that have to do very much with his brain, and we see that he is an insomniac and doesn't get much sleep, and I believe that this could be a source for some of his hallucinations. In hopes of finding some medication to help him with his insomnia, he goes to a doctor who doesn't see that there's anything wrong with his brain.
Is that so?
It is so. I would highly disagree, though. He could just be a hypochondriac, and I bet that's just what the doctor believed, but if he really took a good look at his brain, he could have seen something there. And so, to find some comfort for his insomnia, he starts attending support groups for various diseases, and he becomes a bit addicted because he finds great solace in this type of comfort. And so, once he's found this solace, it comforts him and he gets to sleep more. However, it doesn't last long, and he starts to have extreme hallucinations. We didn't know that they were hallucinations at the time, but at the end of the movie we realized that teetotaling is not actually real. And there are various diagnoses for this type of struggle that Jack faces.
I would agree.
Thank you. With this struggle of his hallucinations, he becomes very depressed and verges on suicide. And I would like to diagnose him with a few things. I think that he might be suffering from dissociative identity disorder, and Tyler could be one of his personalities. Or he could have schizophrenia because we don't know about his genetic past.
Excuse me, I think you're in denial. Since I founded psychoanalysis, I actually believe that Jack really has stage fixations. The first being a fixation in the anal stage of development, which says that he is anal retentive because he's an obsessive person in the beginning. He is very organized, and this shows that he was pushed too hard when he was being potty trained.
Dr. Maslow, would you agree?
I would definitely agree.
Thank you. Also, it is clear that Jack has a phallic stage fixation, which is really the Oedipus complex. And we can see his father in this movie as Tyler. He yearns to kill Tyler. He is very jealous of him while Tyler is having sex with the woman Marla, who is really the idealistic woman in this movie. And he worships Tyler in the sense that he needs sexual gratification from Marla, but he can't get it. Lastly, he has a genital fixation as well, which is not as much sexual gratification, but the loving friendship in need of someone to support him gratification that he searches for. And you can see this in his need for adult relationships and responsibilities, which he later just fails to have. As young, naive Derek Shepherd may think these are just hallucinations, it is clear that Tyler in this movie is the representation of the id, and Jack is the ego. Since he is an insomniac in this movie and has problems sleeping, he doesn't get to process his id and see it to its full potential in the dreams which he would have, so the id comes out in his daily life. Thus, the id, as Tyler shows, is the primitive, instinctive component of his life and will do whatever he wants, searches for immediate gratification, and doesn't really care about the superego or the societal role in this movie. Jack is trying to deal with this and is the ego because you can see that he has to mediate between the superego, society, and again, Tyler, the id. He looks for social norms and tries to stop the mayhem that is happening during the movie.
Right, he tries to protect Marla.
Shut up, Phil, this isn't about the Lucifer effect.
Aye, Sigmund.
Anyway, Jack does try to protect Marla, but instead has a huge problem with Tyler, but the ego eventually wins, and this is fantastic.
Hey, you know what else is fantastic?
What?
People! So, throughout the movie, we see that Jack goes through all 6 steps of the hierarchy of needs that I invented. You're welcome. So first is the physiological steps. He fulfills his physiological needs with his job, so he earns money so he can have food, water, and a place to sleep. So that leads into safety. His place to sleep is his home. He feels safe there. He also finds safety and comfort in all of the furniture he buys, which is a little strange for a man to do, but he does it anyways because it gives him security. Next, he starts searching for love and belonging because he doesn't feel happy. So he meets this woman Marla at all the support groups that he goes to, and he decides that he wants to be sexually intimate with her. Oh God, I can't.
Know who I wanted to be sexually intimate with?
Do tell.
My mom.
So next in the hierarchy of needs, Jack reaches the level of self-esteem. He finds self-esteem in the Fight Club because it gives him a sense of confidence in himself, and he earns the respect of others when he wins fights. Finally, Jack gets to the 6th stage of self-actualization.
Da 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 da. Oh,
Thank
hey. Yay!
Phil. Thank you. Alright, as I was saying, Jack reaches
Glad I could contribute.
Anyways, as I was saying, Jack reaches self-actualization when Tyler pushes him to believe that the only way you can be free is by defying everything that's holding you back. In the case of Jack and Tyler, what's holding them back is society, essentially, and the restrictions that they feel from their fathers in their lives, or the lack of fathers in their lives. Once they become fathers, they can take control of this cycle of endless fathers. So at the end of the movie, we see that Jack has finally become self-actualized. He is standing and he is at peace with Marla, finally, yay. And he has reached his full potential and he is comfortable with himself.
The Lucifer effect.
No, not quite, Phil.
Not everything's about you, Phil!
I find your work very interesting.
It is interesting, thank you.
Okay, so diverging away from where my colleagues have gone, I'd like to go back to the beginning of the movie, to the formation of Fight Club. And I would just like to say that I think, all in all, the reason they formed Fight Club was because they were trying to deal with stressors in their life, and everything else they tried wasn't working for them. Even Jack's little adventure with the support groups did not work entirely. So when he realized he could beat himself up to make him feel better, that's what he did. And so because of that, he reverted to violent tendencies in order to cope with his materialistic real-life stress. So this also relates back to the Lucifer effect, just like everything. So generally, the Lucifer effect is basically when good people do bad things when they're placed under stress or in bad situations. So just like that, Jack, who would normally is not a very violent guy, he says he's never had a fight in his entire life. But he's trying to deal with his stress, he's got lots of problems in his life, so he does some bad things. Beats himself up. So, moving on, group polarization is another prevalent theory in social psychology. Group polarization is when a bunch of like-minded people are grouped into the same area, and their strengths and their beliefs are strengthened. So, because originally a bunch of guys joined the club just because they wanted to fight and deal with their stress, but as more and more kept joining, they became more and more assured of themselves that this is like the right thing to do. This is how they should be coping with their stress. So, in addition to the group polarization, we also have de-individuation. Very closely related, but they are different. De-individuation is when you have an individual in a group, and that individual, like Jack, loses his sense of morale and ethics, and he almost has a loss of principles and does things that he would never normally do by himself. Okay, so another very important theme in the movie Fight Club pertaining to social psychology will be the concept of conformity. Alright, so conformity is the act of matching attitudes, beliefs, and behaviors to group norms. And basically how this pertains to Fight Club is that as you have members of Fight Club like Tyler and Jack, and when they start gaining more members, those members conform to the way that Tyler and Jack do things. So they become more inclined to fight, they become more inclined to fight social norms. And
from a humanistic perspective, the ending of the movie was very fantastic because Jack's innate goodness showed.
I thought the movie's ending was very predictable and boring. I mean, I proposed so many years ago that the id would take over if there wasn't a chance for the ego to sleep. So whatever.
I was looking for a breath of life, a little touch of heavenly light, but all the choirs in my head sang